Hey everybody, this is the assembly video for month 3, and the skill we're working on this month is called partial seams, and that seems like an odd term, but when you look at the block and the way it's laid out, and I've put all my pieces here, is that I have to start sewing, and actually I'm going to have part of my block that's not attached because we're going to work around the middle. And so a partial seam means we're not going to be able to complete this seam until we've sewn all the other pieces on. So there's a little trick to that, and it's kind of a little bit like magic. But I really enjoy doing this. It's kind of fun to work on. So I'm actually going to sew this block in front of you so that you can see how the process works. And so I'm going to lay this down, and I'm going to, hopefully you can see. Do you want me to prop it up, Michelle?
Are we sewing or are we?
I'm going to sew.
Yep,
So,
I'm going to come in.
okay, I am going to take the sage green and put it on top of the desert, or we call this one the
Waters.
the dark waters or something.
Northern
waters, I guess, like that. And I'm going to put them right sides together. And I want you to notice that I put this guide on my machine because I like having a guide so I don't have to work as hard or think as hard. And bring my foot control over where I can work with it. And I'm just, helps if you put your presser foot down. The machine's telling me I'm not being very smart. And I'm just going to sew this seam, okay? Now, the good news is after last month and you had all those match points, there are no match points on this one. The only thing I'm going to tell you is if you are stitching, if you are pressing against the centerpiece, you want to press away from the centerpiece, but it really doesn't matter. This one I'm going to press towards the darker fabric, and once you start with this first piece, I've got that pressed. Now we're going to start working with the middle piece. Everything now is going to get attached to the center. Do we see that? So I'm going to put this right sides together, but notice this is much longer than this piece. That's okay. This is why we call it a partial seam. We're going to align the right side here. Okay, I'm going to line that up. And when I start to sew, make sure I'm straight, I'm going to sew, give myself about 1/2 inch. I want to start in from the edge of that center piece because I'm going to have to peel this back to finish this seam. So I'm going to start about 1/2 inch in. There's no rule to this, whatever is easiest for you. So I'm going to put that one down, and then I'm going to sew this. And I love this. It's really kind of fun once you get going. All right. Now remember I said whenever you're sewn onto the middle, you want to press away from this piece. There's a reason at the end you want to do that. So I'm just going to take my iron and I'm going to press away. And remember, you've got a part of this that is not sewn, and that's what you want. You want to leave that open. Okay? So if I put this back down here, you can see the next piece I'm going to sew on is this piece, and that's going to go here. So I'm just going to flip that over, and I'm sewing fast and dirty here, so please don't judge my accurate seam allowances. I'm also not pinning anything. I'm so used to my foot automatically going down when I step on the foot control. All right, line that up. Make sure those line up.
So that's a full seam all the way.
This is a full seam all the way. So we've got this that's still open there. Now we've sewn this, and again we're going to press it away from the center. So I'm going to take and press that. Pressed. Okay, and I always bring it back and put it back down where it goes. Now my next one I'm going to sew, can you see this, is this one, but it doesn't reach the edge, and it should, because I have to sew this piece on it first. So I'm going to take this one and flip it over, and I'm going to sew this on there first to make it long enough. This is truly a block you can leave to an hour before class to get done. It goes that fast. If I can sew the whole thing in the video, you're going to be good. Okay, I'm going to press that seam, and it really doesn't matter which way you press it because there's no matching seams in this one. So now you can see this fits here, and I'm going to flip this over. And this is going to seem really strange to you because we're working this block and we're not doing rows, we're just working our way around the center. Right. And again, remember I said we're pressing away from the center. So I'm going to take this one and I'm going to press, whoops, I caught that seam. Don't you hate when that happens, when that flips over? If I was pinning, that wouldn't have happened. But I'm not going to stress about it now. All right, so if I put this back down the way it was, let me find there. Look, did you ever construct a block like this before? So we're going to put this down, and we have one more piece to add. And it goes here, but look at, there's a gap here. So I first have to sew this onto this so that I can sew this here. So let me do that, and then I'm going to show you the little trick there. Okay. And I didn't pre-sew these and tell you to do it ahead of time because it's easier to kind of see it as it builds, if that makes sense. All right, so now this is going to go here. But look, this is in the way. Well, the reason we left this open, or we call it a partial seam, is because now we can line this up right sides together, and we're going to sew, not catching this piece in.
Get a good close-up.
Okay, so look, you can see it's white here, and we left this open, so this is going to line up with the top of that. And I know you're thinking at this point, well, how do we finish the block? It's pretty magic, but let's get this one sewn. We've got it lined up. I'm going to sew this one. And like I said, I'm sewing down and dirty. I'm sure this block will not measure 12.5 inches, but that is okay.
Display purposes.
So you can see I've sewn this, right? And this I've just got pulled back. Now again, we're going to press towards the middle, or away from the middle. I'm sorry. Remember, I said that was important, to press away from the middle each time. All right, so if we started like this, we sewed these two together, sewed it here. We sewed this one on. We sewed these two together and sewed it here. We sewed these two together, sewed it here. Now we have our flap. Magically, if we fold this over, we can now match this up and we can sew the rest of the seam. It's magic. All right. And I'm just going to overlap my sewing a tad. So sometimes when you look at quilt blocks and you can't figure out how on earth they did it, this is one of those times that they did it with a partial seam. And look, I'll press that in a minute, but look, there's your block. Look how fast that was. But when you look at it, you think, how am I going to do that? How do you get that in around the center? And that was easy, wasn't it? We just left a 1/2 inch open here and we started working our way around, got and finished that one, and then we could flip the flap over and finish sewing it. And that's called a partial seam. Okay, so that's month 3. We'll see you next for month 4.